Hey everyone, in this example we have another solve the polynomial equation by factoring setup here. This time's a little different. It's already equal to 0, but they threw that little negative as the leading term in there to kind of dice it, make it a little spicy, I guess, and confuse things a little. But let's get into it. If it's already equal to 0, that took care of step 1 for us. Now we want to factor, and we always start our factoring with the greatest common factor. If you don't have a greatest common factor so much, but the leading term is negative, pull out that negative. You guys make mistakes like crazy when you leave it there. Just take it out, okay? Factor it out. So I'm going to take the -1 out. So I'm dividing by -1. Now, when you do that, all of the signs change, right? It's a super pretzel peacock thing. Every single sign is going to change. So now we're dealing with x to the third minus x to the second. Don't get lazy. Plus 3x. Don't keep it the same. Everything changes. And minus 3 equals 0. Now, to keep the factoring going, this is a beautiful example of factoring by grouping. Greatest common factor here is x squared, and here is plus 3. We always use the sign of the first term in that set. From here, -1 is still sitting there. I'm going to switch over to a bracket. X squared is coming out. That leaves an x minus 1 inside if we reduce with our pretzel. Plus 3, again, x minus 1. Don't assume the second parenthesis will match the first. If more of you actually paid attention to what you did get in this part, you'd catch mistakes and avoid getting points off or getting something wrong on a test or a quiz, because you assume you don't catch things with like plus and minus signs and certain coefficients and blah, blah, blah. So do it, okay? Now, -1's still there. X minus 1, we're going to pull that outside right over here. And what's left? X squared plus 3. And now it's very similar to the last example if you just checked out that one. We're going to get at most 3 answers for something like this. Here we're actually going to get 1 real and 2 imaginary answers. If you don't know about imaginary numbers yet, solving this part, you might just say no real solution, but let's cross each bridge as we get to it. Now, could I set -1 equal to 0? Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. -1 does not equal 0, so throw it away. If you need to write it down to remember to set everything equal to 0, do it. Because if it's not just -1, if it's -1x, well then you can solve for x and x equals 0. Being that it's just the coefficient and no variable, just a constant, it's a throwaway. Next factor, x minus 1 equals 0, so x equals 1. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. This is our one and only real solution to this equation. Next up, x squared plus 3. Now, don't get confused and think it's a sum or difference of cubes. It is not. We have x squared. It's also not a difference of squares because it's not a difference. So what can we do with this? Well, we'll just solve by taking square roots. Don't make assumptions. Your brain autocorrects all the time. And it's like, cannot have a negative with the square. And then your brain is just going to like bring it over and make it positive. Don't do that. That's you, right? Like you're making that up. You would subtract it, write it down if you need to. X squared equals -3. How do we get rid of, get the x more alone? Well, I'm glad you asked. We take the square root of both sides. And what happens when you take a square root yourself? That's right. You have to remember to put the plus and minus in front. So plus minus the square root of -3. What's the square root of 3? No, it's not 3. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 3 is square root 3. That's it. Don't make it a decimal. It's just square root 3. But the negative, many of you, if you see this, you might initially just put no real solution. Nothing times itself is negative. If you know that if it's not real, it must be imaginary, then even better answer are positive and negative I, meaning imaginary, square root 3. So here in this example, we found 2 imaginary solutions and we found 1 real solution. I hope you got those same answers. If you just found x equals 1, kind of wrote this out and wrote no real solution on this part, that's also fantastic. Good job. Hopefully the box to the next video pops up in a second, and I hope you're feeling confident. Adios.